Milk. Some of us use it every day. From a baking ingredient to having a glass of it with your breakfast, milk and its related products have certainly become a staple of American culture. Interestingly, milk consumption is decreasing today across the United States, with nearly 37% less of it being consumed compared to 50 years ago. Among many factors, the primary reason for this plummet is the replacement of milk with other beverages, such as protein drinks and juices, which can also be coupled to the development of products suitable for individuals who are lactose intolerant. Regardless of this decline in popularity, milk has certainly come into contact with each and every one of us at some point in our lives. But the true question is, why milk? And especially, why Orange County? Today, the majority of people across the world would not think twice about walking into a supermarket and purchasing a container of milk. After all, it is one of the main products to be featured in those glass-encased refrigerators that line the dairy aisle. This, however, was not always the case, and there was a time where pure, healthy milk was a rare commodity. Urban environments that were far away from rural farms had to instead contend with poisonous substances that, although labeled as milk, led to widespread sickness and death. That all changed a little over 150 years ago, when the opportunities provided by a relatively new industry ignited a powerful market right here in the Hudson Valley, and led to a rich history spanning 200 years. Spoiled milk. 2 centuries of innovative triumph and toxic corruption in New York State's lost dairy farming empire is the culmination of 4 years of research into Orange County, New York's role in dairy farming, milk transportation, and the marketing of fresh milk to New York City. In its current form, the work's 175 pages contain a rich amount of information, supported by over 600 endnotes representing a wide diversity of interviews, period documents, and newspaper articles, as well as books and journal articles that discuss this rich history. Furthermore, the book features over 250 images that portray Orange County's dairy industry from its birth to its decline, as well as a detailed appendix of every milk bottle from Orange County currently known to exist, something in its own right that truly shows how important agriculture once was in this region. While many may envision the agriculture-rich Great Plains or Wisconsin's farms as a bastion of dairy farming, it was Orange County that stood at the forefront of so many innovations, ranging from Thaddeus Selleck's first shipment of milk by railroad in 1842 to Jacob Vale's monumental invention of the milk can that cooled milk and, of course, the use of some of the nation's earliest milk bottles. Chapter 1 introduces readers to Orange County, located around 50 miles north of New York City. Originally created in 1683 as one of New York's 12 original counties, its present-day borders were established in 1798, and the 833 square mile region can be broken conveniently into 7 distinct geographical regions. These include the southeastern, southern, western, central west, central east, northeastern, and northern regions of the county. The majority of Orange County's farms are located in the central west, central east, and southern regions, which encompasses the towns of Wawayanda, Wallkill, Goshen, Chester, Blooming Grove, Hamptonburg, and Warwick. Cattle feeding on the grasses within these low-lying areas, as a result of the rich soil, tended to produce the richest quality of milk, while cows kept in mountain pastures produced less cream. These low-lying regions, known in the southern part of the county as the Drowned Lands, extended northward to the towns of New Windsor and Newburgh. The region gets its name from the 3-mile thick glaciers that, even after thousands of years of melting, left large lakes and expansive swamps. Here, the fertile plains, and just north of Blooming Grove, and become more mountainous. This can also be said of the northern region, where the Shwangunks give the towns of Montgomery and Crawford a more elevated terrain. However, this does not mean that the area was completely devoid of farms. The city of Newburgh once had more than 50 farms that bottled their own milk. Finally, there are the southeastern and western regions of the county. Here, two prominent mountain ranges of Orange County lie, with elevations reaching over 1,000 feet in some areas. In the southeastern region, the Kittatinny or South Mountains extend from New Jersey and join the highlands just south of Newburgh. It is in this range where the highlands slice the land in a series of diagonal striations, creating numerous valleys known as cloves, such as Smith's Clove in the town of Woodbury. Here, within the valleys, the dairy-rich towns of Cornwall, Woodbury, Monroe, Arden, and Tuxedo can be found. In particular, Monroe was once home to 3 large creameries, as well as being the location where one of the first glass milk bottles was used. The region was also home to railroad tycoon Edward Henry Harriman, where he lived from 1886 until his death in 1909. In 1896, he started the Arden Farms Dairy Company, a highly successful dairy operation that lasted well into the 20th century. At the opposite end of the county, in the western region, the Shwangunks traverse the towns of Mount Hope, Minnesink, Greenville, and Deer Park. The land here is so mountainous that the city of Port Jervis, nestled between the Delaware River and the Shwangunk Range, is nearly cut off from the rest of the county. However, the dairy farms there proved resilient and thrived in this region, with Port Jervis being home to over 20 dairies that bottled their own milk, in addition to those farmers who sold milk directly to a producer. Whether in the fertile plains or in the mountains, much of Orange County's land was sought after for agricultural purposes. Transitioning from geography comes the problem of swill milk that preceded the era of pure Orange County milk. Before modern transportation dominated New York, milk could not be transported over long distances without going sour, and there was no space for pastures in the city. A solution was desperately needed since the population of 19th century New York City and its need for healthy fresh milk grew even greater. The solution came with the introduction of swill milk, and its story is deeply tainted with filth. During the 19th century, it was not an uncommon sight to see over 100 cows pressed into small, tight stalls inside stifling city stables. Once placed into their tiny spaces, the cows seldom went outside to see the light of day. The stables were dark and filthy, which caused the cows to develop sores and ulcers, all of which adversely affected the quality of city-produced milk. Then came the cow's feed. The urban milk producers were not able to supply the nutritious grass, fresh air, and pure, clean water that could be found outside of New York City. Instead, they relied on the more dangerous city water and swill, a substance composed of processed corn, barley, and rye malt that was left over from the breweries. Feeding the swill to cows conveniently allowed distillery owners to transform their waste into profit, and, as a result, a marriage of convenience was made between brewery producers and dairymen who located their filthy cattle stalls next to the breweries. Many distillers mistakenly thought this organic feed would be ideal for the cows. It is true that swill does have a high nutritional value, but only when it is supplemented with the more expensive hay or grain that frugal city dairymen were reluctant to purchase. When presented with the plain swill in their unhygienic stalls, cows would openly resist eating it until they became starved and desperate for any source of food. This unhealthy diet caused the cows to get increasingly sick, developing ulcer-like sores over their skin and even causing their tails to fall off, which many New Yorkers coined the name stumped-tailed cows for their appearance. These diseases, however, did not concern the city dairymen, who only hoped to generate profits, and thus, more cows were imprisoned in the cramped stables. There were around 18,000 cows in New York City breweries by 1835, and by the 1850s, nearly two-thirds of New York City milk came from infected and disease-ridden cattle. The fight to end soy milk production continued far longer than anticipated, with journalist Henry Irving Dodge claiming that it was a major contributor to the deaths of more than 20,000 children under the age of 2 in 1904. While the issue of soy milk raged in the city, Orange County was focused on its production of the fabled Goshen Butter, which was sent to destinations as far away as Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina. The region's first settlers began their agricultural pursuits by planting and harvesting grain. Even as early as the late 1700s, butter was a valuable commodity in Orange County, but had yet to gain its fame until 1820. It was an ideal cash crop of sorts since, when stored in the right conditions, it could last for up to a year and travel far distances without spoiling. The production of butter required two essential factors: cleanliness and a proper temperature. When these were achieved, the butter would then be packed closely together in small containers called firkins and covered with a layer of fine salt over a muslin cloth before being transported. This butter became such a famed commodity that local legend states the National Bank of Orange County printed its banknotes on yellow paper, affectionately known as butter money. Exporting butter began before the days of the railroad, but the natural topography of Orange County made it a long and arduous process. The first part of this trip occurred annually on the second Tuesday of November, which was a cumbersome ride from Orange County's heartland to the Hudson River towns of Cornwall or Newburgh. This was no easy feat when traveling by horse and carriage upon unpaved country roads that would have featured numerous tolls along the route. Upon reaching the end of the journey, the weary farmers were greeted by the merchants of Newburgh, some of the most notable being Thomas Powell, Isaac Van Duzer, Homer Ramsdell, Henry Robinson, and Henry Walsh. At the waterfront, barkers acted as negotiators between the farmers and the shippers who were eager to make a profit. Sloop owners were very determined to consign cargo, and the captain of the boat often acted as a selling agent for the shipper, earning a commission of almost 2 to 6% plus the freight charge. In 1829 alone, the city of Newburgh shipped more than 3,500,000 pounds of butter, returning $560 million to Orange County.